What's going on with everything in the BSV Bitcoin Association? Is there a hard fork happening? What's up with this new Teranode CEO with a new company? Is it an end chain? What the heck? Is it an end chain offshoot? What is happening? We got Brett C. Banafy from the BSV Association, the Community Outreach Director, coming on with us here in just a moment. So stay tuned to the end of this video and we will break this entire thing down. All right. And I will see you at the top and on the inside. All right, we're going to jump right into it today. We're going right on the record today. No hold time, my man. I'm on the record. Good to see you, Brett. How you
Hey,
doing, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Excellent. Excellent. And thanks for getting back in here and a lot to talk about. So I have some I'm curious about some of the things that have been going on, but yeah, what the hell you been up to?
I just got back from Mexico, and you recall that last year when I was in Mexico, I think that was our first conversation that we had, and I was telling you the story about my father, and he was in the room right there with me, and it was really nice because I was telling you things that I truthfully, honestly felt about him, that he's taught me so much, and I've told a lot of people those things, but he just wasn't always in the room with me when I was saying it. So that stands out as a nice memory for me. In fact, he passed away in April of last year. And some of his last thoughts and his last words to me were that I was going to meet you in San Francisco in March, just a couple weeks before he passed away. And he was like so proud of me, and he had become a big fan of your show, your program. He was watching everything that you were doing, and he was asking me for your inside thoughts about everything. So you became kind of like, as he was going out, he came up on like the Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and Dale Carnegie schools of thought and stuff. And he lived his whole life that way. And then on his way out, even just your program was what meant the most to him. So it was special to be down there and thinking of all of those things.
Yeah, that was a great time. I'll post a link to the video here so you can anyone can watch it. I remember the you were out on the balcony and it was like this beautiful high rise up in Mexico.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Yep, yep.
that was a great one, man. That was really great, dude. That was thanks for sharing that memory. It was I
Yeah.
appreciate being a part of that. So so you're back from Mexico. Now what is there's a lot of developments happening. A couple of things that are really interesting. The Kurt mentioned yesterday with Connor, there's a hard fork happening with BSV. And I want to get clarification on that, first of all. And I want to ask also about what you know about the new Teranode CEO. What the heck is going on with Teranode? Apparently, there's experts who have been flown in this week, and they were there. I personally know one who was in there yesterday. I think he's flying back today. But either way, he's in London, and they're meeting behind closed doors, mapping out taking over the world. So, yeah. So first of all, the hard fork. What is going on?
Yeah, so as I understand it, that is the Chronicle upgrade, and the Chronicle upgrade is, I know that my colleague Todd Price, this is someone that I'd love to get on your show. Have you interviewed Todd yet?
Just on that one podcast that we had on X, that was an
Yeah,
interview.
maybe we can get him on for a full breakdown of the Chronicle release. So Todd is on the education team. For those that aren't aware, there is still a BSV Academy. The website, I believe, is academy.bsvblockchain.org. And so Todd is the content expert for the BSV education program. And so I know that he has done a ton on the Chronicle upgrade itself, as well as Connor, who was on Kurt's show. If you haven't seen that, check that out. CoinGeek Weekly live stream with Kurt and Connor Murray. But this will be, Connor called it the last upgrade to get back to the original Bitcoin protocol. I really want to hope that's true. He said he definitely doesn't want to touch the protocol anymore. And but I wasn't clear from that interview about the difficulty adjustment algorithm. Did you happen to catch, is that going to be included in this rollback? Um, did you
I
did
didn't I
you
didn't catch that. It was too brief. He was out of there in 30 minutes. So they just
Okay, so
briefly yeah.
So then here's my understanding of it, not with any degree of expertise or anything, but just as, someone that's really paying close attention to it, is that these are some of the last remaining opcodes that are going to be re-enabled for use through the Bitcoin scripting system. And specifically the main one, I think there's four or so that are going to be re-enabled, but opver is the main opcode that's going to be re-enabled. Based on Kurt's show yesterday, he was talking about that opver has never been used. I think maybe this is partially because it had just gotten shut off before, the scripting language was really fully understood. Now it's much more well understood in terms of what it can do. Famously, for those that are just tuning in and maybe haven't gotten a deep dive into Bitcoin script and some of its functionality, I really encourage you to check out the original discussion with Craig Wright, with Nick Szabo, and Bitcoin Bell, I think was her name. There was a conference in, I think, 2015, early 2015, where Craig's on a jumbo screen behind everyone, and he's describing how, Bitcoin script is a predicate. So it's not actually a coding language. That's quite important, which we'll find out maybe later on. But it is a way to evaluate if something becomes converts to true or false, or there's a third way that it can convert, which is syntactically invalid. So a famous example of a syntactically invalid script would be something like, check if this statement is true. If this statement is true, check if it's true, or something like this. So basically you're telling the computer to check if its own checking is valid, something like that, where basically it doesn't result in true or false because, it's
It's
basically
a
like a
it's like a looping
loop.
function, right? It's
Exactly. It's
like
like
it
a loop.
loops
So
and it loops
yeah,
with binary codes, but like true or false, true or false, true or false. Is that kind of a simple?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
if it becomes true, then it becomes false again. So that would be what would be described as a syntactically invalid you know, predicate. If the script evaluated syntactically invalid. And the reason why this is important is because what we're talking about at the base layer and opver and some of these other new opcodes that are coming with the Chronicle release are just further features that are now enabled to these developers. But it's ways to allow for our node network to validate specific components to determine whether or not a transaction can be spent or not. So the more flexibility that you have in that, an example that I like to use is just sports betting. Check if the result of this game is a winner by this team. If so, you pay person X. If the winner was this team, then you pay person Y, right? So what you're doing is you're enabling granularity so that the miners, the node network, are able to follow these instructions, and in when they follow those instructions, they're able to determine whether or not a token is valid to be spent or not, and that enables all types of unique functions that can be built on top. As I understand it, one of the new use cases for opver would be to check if a specific version um, of a software was being operated at the time, and we sort of have this with software that we run on our computers, right? So sometimes, I have an old computer a decade ago, and there's lots of times when I want to put a game on there or something, and I just can't because the computer's too old. You need to check that there's at least this modern version of the software that's running to be able to allow these specific the specific software to be run on top. And so you can think of Bitcoin kind of as just a virtual compute system. On a regular compute system, if you have a motherboard or something like that, and you have, the compute section down here, you have the graphics processing unit up here, you have, the video card over here, right? And these are all coordinating to produce outputs that get interpreted as as audio, video, codec, all that type of stuff. So really what Bitcoin is enabling you to do is to do the exact same thing, except instead of those processes being coordinated across a single physical chip, the processes can be coordinated across distributed systems. So we're seeing that the emergence of that and the value of that with things like large language models, because these large language models, they're only really possible when you hook up these massive amounts of GPU units that are able to evaluate things very quickly and then output that into a result. No
Chat
single
GBT
computer
and others,
can do
right?
that.
Yeah.
Exactly, like ChatGPT, like Grok. So what we're seeing is we're seeing that model emerge, the value of being able to distribute data load so that some of it's getting sent over to this unit where Grok is processing it. So maybe some of this is being sent over to a personalized section where it knows the types of information that I already know or that I enjoy looking at. So Bitcoin is a method of accomplishing that with supreme efficiency, and OpVer and the other components that are being included in this Chronicle upgrade. Those are further ways to add flexibility to those
So,
feature sets.
so for example, with Grok, I mean, because it's on X and it's really popular. I mean, what would you say if you were to have 2 minutes with Elon Musk and you say, look, here's the major game-changing value add of implementing Bitcoin SV into Grok and into X for the payment protocol that will absolutely give you so much more. A major upgrade, a major change, not just a little bit, but like so. What would be the 2 minute major pitch to him in your opinion?
Yeah, so I mean, the most obvious one is micropayments. So we heard today that X is considering integrating Visa, and Visa can use BSV as infrastructure, core infrastructure for its network, because BSV is instantaneous settlement, it's complete auditability, trackability, traceability, tamper-proof data, etc. So, even if it's Visa as the branded logo that is being incorporated into X, underneath Visa, what's actually happening is the infrastructure, instead of running on a monolithic architecture system of a single database or a monolithic cloud structure, what they're doing is they would be, by incorporating BSV, they would be incorporating a distributed application environment for modular microservices. So an example of that could be, and maybe we can eventually pivot to the Teranode group where I'll get more into detail, but for now I'll just mention a quick point on their group, is that they are looking at modularizing that KYC process, the process of know your customer. Who is it that's spending this? That's obviously at the heart of what Visa is doing. They need to know who's buying this content, right? Because some of the content is age restricted. Are you of legal age to be purchasing this content, etc. So what BSV enables is the modularization of all the different components that happen in, like, just like an assembly line that would happen at a factory. You are able to modularize each of the components that's going on, whether that's posting the data, whether that's calling the data from the chain, etc. If you're a company like X and you want to ensure that there's an ability to preserve history of information, as opposed to just putting it on a platform where it can get deleted, or whether it's implementing micropayments for that data itself. Similar to what Twitch did when likes under content were the equivalent of paying 5 cents to the person that you were liking their content. And what really this enables, and I hope that we see for the sake of all content creators out there, is the ability to remove the middleman. Visa right now and MasterCard and other payment networks, they get in the way of the creator and the fan engagement experience. A platform like YouTube, they won't let you actually monetize your content until you reach a specific threshold. And in order to get to that threshold, of course, you need to be saying things that they've pre-approved or that don't go against their what they're looking to promote on their platform. We saw the way that was used to great detriment to hide specific information that turned out to be true about things like, the
Yeah,
Twitter
let's not go
file.
into it too much, but
And
this is
and
gonna.
so if you were sharing truthful information about that, you would have been deplatformed, you would have been demonetized.
Yeah.
Whereas a network like BSV, what that enables is, even if I'm just sending you 1 penny for liking a video that you made, that penny is going directly to you. Maybe you have a platform that takes 10% of that. Maybe that's a term that you agree to as a content creator, or maybe not. Maybe competing platforms like Rumble and some of these other platforms will come up and say, "Hey, we won't take your funds. We'll let you take them directly from your fans." So what this creates is a more integral architecture system for the dissemination of information. And really, when we're talking about BSV and Bitcoin, and the idea is that, yes, it's about money. Money is the key at the end of the day, but really money is just there. Money is the little engine that powers information. It's really about sharing information and rewarding quality information. And when those payment gateways are being monopolized by big global players at the top that want you to sing a certain tune and narrative in order to monetize you, then what we're seeing a disconnect and a deconstruction of the relationship between the truth tellers, the content creators, and the fans that are benefiting from their work.
Right. So it sounds like basically with X, the major value add potentially would be that people could start paying each other directly, and they could still use Visa apparently if it's built with. But how does that make so much of a game changer to where, like, as opposed to Elon Musk just putting in Visa with the credit card logo? I mean, what's the big difference to saying why is it? I guess my question is like it has to be a 10x or a 100x better for people to even be like, oh, like Elon Musk to even give a crap, you know? So why is it a 100x better or 10x better than the current system for someone like Elon Musk and the people involved in X?
Yeah, it saves them massive amounts of money. I mean, when that's really what's going to drive this. I mean, we can say that we want to I think it will create a better world. I truly do think that. And I will hang my hat on that. And I can explain in great depth and detail why I believe it does create a better world. But at the end of the day, we're a world that is driven by economics. And so I have a famous quote that I love from Buckminster Fuller, where he said, if you want to change a system, instead of fighting the old system, invent a new system that makes the old system obsolete. So this is what we're doing with BSV and with micropayments and the ability to spend fractions of a penny and send fractions of a penny. I was just speaking with a friend of mine who runs a small Lebanese restaurant in New Jersey called Norma's. If you're ever out there, check it out. It's in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. But
Isn't
he
that
was
where you
telling
grew
me that
up?
even just over,
Did you grow up
that
out
is
there?
where I grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that Visa and the other credit card companies have taken $250,000 from just his small little mom and pop. I mean, it's called Norma's. That's the name of his mom. She still runs the restaurant and the little Lebanese counter where they sell, the yogurts and all of that stuff. $250,000 just from that one company, or just for that one small little restaurant, right? So why would Twitter care? Why does X care? Is because they're going to save tens of millions of dollars. The infrastructure that it costs to settle all of this stuff with BSV, with better security, more immutability, all of this stuff. It's not just that it ultimately creates better incentives for the economic participants. It's not just that you, the creator, Gavin Mehl, get a greater chunk of the monetization efforts of your great content. That's just a side benefit. The real benefit and the real thing that will move the needle, and the reason why BSV will win, is because there's no system that can compete on terms of how scalable this architecture is and how much cost savings there is, especially when you add these new elements and components like DeepSeek, like we're seeing with AI, like with Grok, with ChatGPT, where all of this stuff can now be monetized on call, on demand. instead of just paid up front for these subscriptions. Because again, these subscriptions, they're oftentimes just like a Netflix subscription. If you're processing a Netflix subscription with Visa, it's a what, a 9.99, or maybe it's up to 16.99 now. I forget what exactly it is. But Visa is capturing a large chunk of that. They're taking 35 cents off the top, no matter what, and then they're capturing, between 2 and 3% of everything that's being marketed and sold. Whereas the underlying infrastructure of BSV allows you to completely change that paradigm, and the cost savings on that are astronomical.
Basically almost makes it free. I mean, very
Yeah.
close to. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It
So, okay. So some of the value adds with X and whatnot. Now
Can I
let's,
just add one thing really quick,
yeah,
Gavin? So free comes with some bad baggage, right? Because we get services like Google for free, right? But there is a hidden cost. My Google search is free, but they're
if
harvesting
you,
my data.
yeah,
So
as
it
long as
is
you
not
opt into the
free.
terms and conditions that you're going to surrender
Exactly.
your rights to your
Exactly.
data
But what,
and
what
your,
we're doing is capitalism at the most granular and lowest level. So no longer is there an incentive. I'm the customer now. So, the product is I'm not the product anymore. The product is what I'm servicing. And so this actually flips the paradigm on its head. You, the content creator, you're not putting your content out there, and now Google owns it and YouTube owns it, or all of your vacation photos, Facebook owns all of that now. No, all that content is being owned by you, and you're giving permission to these platforms like X to be able to populate it. But if all of a sudden X collapses, and I have 2 decades worth of content that I've used to narrate my thoughts and things like that, I don't lose that content, because that content was never owned by X to begin with. That content stays with me because it's connected to my digital signature, and I can simply sign my digital signature over at another platform like Blue Sky or like Facebook, and all of a sudden all of my content is populated again. And this is the key. This is the value differentiator. And again, this isn't what's going to be moving the needle. Moving the needle is going to be saving them hundreds of millions of dollars, but this is just the side benefit. This is why it creates a better world, because it fixes the incentives, and it removes the rotted incentives that come with giving a product away for free, which was a necessity when the internet first came around.
mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So great. So I want to go over to the Teranode stuff as well. There's a lot of things happening in the news. I mean, one of the things that's kind of exciting is the content creator stuff. They're going to be at the new administration. They're going to be allowing content creators to be part of the media now, so that you can go in there. You don't have to be part of the mainstream media. The regular content creators can get in there. That's new. So I don't know if I'll apply, but either way, if you're covering that, it's something huge. I mean, that people could do. But what's up with Teranode? The Teranode CEO, they got a new guy in there. They started a new company. Is that part of Enchain, or do you know anything about it? Teranode?
Yeah. Yeah. Before I touch on
Yeah.
the Teranode group, let me just circle back to the point that you made. Well, first of all, I
Okay.
encourage you to take on that role of, you are the media now. And but I want to highlight how this is part and parcel with this shift, this transformation. Back in the 60s, we went through like a counterculture revolution that sort of set the mood and the temperament of the times. We're seeing that now in the 2020s with the shift away from a centralized platforms and to this distributed model. So what we're seeing with Elon saying that you are the news media, and that, yes, so let's just take a thought experiment and say, okay, well, what we know that the media and the news are manipulating stories. A lot of times these platforms, there may be hundreds of them, right? There's NBC and CBS and ABC and CNN, all of these platforms, but really at the end of the day, there's probably a handful of people that own these platforms
Yeah.
that are paying all of the paychecks.
Very
So
few
when
independent.
Exactly. And the ones that are independent, they're getting, pushed out, and they're getting,
They're
like
not allowed in the briefing rooms for the most part.
exactly.
That just changed
Exactly.
though yesterday or the day before. They made that announcement. They're letting him in. They're letting him sit right in the front row now. I had Liz Crokin apply. She said she applied, and I think she's going to get in. So
And and why is it better? It's the same reason why BSV is the better solution. It's because we need to remove the attack vector of the single influencer, right? Like George Soros has his thumb on hundreds of media outlets, right? And he has a specific perspective, that perspective is going to get filtered through by all of the people who want to keep their jobs, right? But when we have a distributed media network, and when we have hundreds of Liz Crokins out there, hundreds of Gavin Mehls out there, then they don't have that same obligation to disseminate the information that George Soros once put out there, right? What we have is we have a better view of the landscape of humanity and the landscape of America. Now,
Mhm.
just because we have a better view doesn't mean that we solve our nation's problems or that we suddenly have the right view just because we have many
No,
perspectives, right?
you just have
We still
more data points.
Exactly, more data points. And when one of those data points is corrupt, we have the ability for it to be completely obvious because it
Yeah.
doesn't match the rest of the network. Well,
Yep.
that's exactly how BSV and blockchain work. So that is what we're seeing with this shift to the new media model, which is distributing the load of that media to the actual participants. We're seeing the exact same thing with the representation of why it makes sense to build and how you get those cost efficiencies of building out this payments network using a scalable, distributed global public ledger. Because yes, it needs to be public because we all need to be able to keep each other accountable, right? Just like the news media needs to be public, we need to be able to see what's going on. But once we have that global public view, it's really about putting in the proof of work, building out your audience, and then showing that you have a vested interest in actually promoting something that's virtuous and true, as opposed to when it's all being done under a single banner of a George Soros, style media platform. Then you can't actually be sure, is this person, maybe they are a good reporter, but maybe they just needed to keep their job this week, or maybe they have a big promotion coming up next week. We don't know. But when we distribute that load, we get a better view. And that's why it makes better sense for America and for the rest of the globe going forward. And then to touch on the Teranode group, yeah, I'm really excited for the development of the Teranode group. I believe that there are elements of this group that are connected with the Enchain group. I don't have like full clarity on that or anything, but my guess is that Enchain really stood out as a benchmark research and development center with they had lots and lots of PhDs working for them. Dr. Owen Vaughn, one of them, had a great privilege of working with a lot of these people. That really what they were focused on was building out, scoping out the future that we just described, how a distributed model can work while retaining, the most important part is retaining the privacy of a not centralized network, just like the privacy of cash. So that's the main thing that needs to get preserved, while at the same time we have to establish a global public view, because it's that global public view that allows us to collapse those fees that Visa would otherwise be taking. So as you can understand, there's lots of moving parts here in terms of how do we replace the functions of a mint-based model, which is in the Bitcoin white paper and Satoshi describes it, and replace that with a distributed model, while at the same time, being resistant to, obvious efforts to, co-opt the network, to subvert it, and all of these things. So really to empower and enable the integrity of the economic participants. And the reason why I think that we are moving in this direction is just because it is basically capitalism at the granular level. And that it was, capitalism is the system that allows for the best fluid exchanges of that information. A capitalist or someone that's putting their own capital on the line will be very insistent on ensuring that the system is operating smoothly and efficiently. Whereas a system like, the government, what Doge is coming in to fix, when they don't have their own capital, they're not nearly as incentivized to ensure it's being managed properly. So what I think we're seeing with the transition from nChain to the Teranode group is we're seeing this tipping point moment when the decade, it's more than decade, because this goes back to the original development and creation of Bitcoin itself. If you go back and look at the white paper, one of the first citations of a paper that was cited in the formation of Bitcoin was Stuart Habener and Scott Stornetta. And that was how to timestamp a digital document going all the way back to 1991. So we're talking about 2024 to 1991, 35 years worth of collective studying, intelligence, research. There was another important paper that came out in 2005 by a man named Ian Grigg that was
I've had on
about
before. Yeah, I'll put a link to the interview I did with him.
yeah, and he'd be a great person to bring back as well, because he has a conference coming up in April called the Triple Entry Accounting Conference. And if we look back and listen to some of the things that Craig has talked about in the past, he talks about how the what Bitcoin actually represents is the merger of the 2005 idea of Ian Grigg's triple entry accounting with the cryptographic primitives and the protocols for how to secure things using signatures and time stamping servers and things like that. So we're seeing that this is now 35 years worth of research that has gone into the development of the patent portfolio that nChain has and maintains. I think it's the sixth largest patent portfolio in the world. Don't quote me on that. It could just be in the blockchain space,
Definitely in the
but
blockchain
anyway,
space for sure. Yeah.
yeah. And now they're saying, okay, we've done the 35 years worth of research to build out these ideas to ensure that we aren't going to be infringing on anyone by building out a network. And now we can go out and we can sell these services to platforms like X, like Visa, and we can say, hey, do you want to save hundreds of millions of dollars? That's usually when you can get that reputation as you're a company that saves hundreds of millions of dollars. It's pretty easy to get into some boardrooms and into some phone calls returned. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see with the Teranode group. This is
I think
the
that,
beginning of the
the
commercialization of this
one,
technology.
the one thing that we really, hopefully I could send out there as a need. And I mean, it's like there's a bridge of gap of being on the executive team of the company, or let's say X, to the person that's going to bridge the gap of information between the value add, between the engineers and the business people. And because the business guy's like, okay, we're going to save money. How in the hell? And then they don't understand, because it's such new technology, right? It's like the fax machine with your dad, and you just say, hey, try this fax machine. It's going to be great. Well, nobody has a fax machine. Why do I want it? What does it even mean? It's so confusing. So I think that's my only thing, is that we got to put out there that we've got to somehow bridge the gap of education. And I know that the BSV Association is doing that to try to educate people better, so that we can, bridge that information gap. That's for sure something I'd like to see happen. But yeah, the other, so the Teranode group is kicking ass. That's all coming forward. There's I want to also put out there the potential of doing maybe doing a hackathon. We have the March coming up again. It's going to be a year. Was it 2 months from now? So maybe doing that. Babbage was talking about it. S-Crypt said they would totally be willing to do it with me. If, I would just be there to host it. I mean, but you could potentially come. That's just, I'm putting it out there. Oh, I also want to thank you for, the show that I had with our friend from New Zealand.
Yeah, Bruce.
Bruce, that was awesome. Thanks for putting that out
Yeah.
there. And also I had a show come out today with Mitch from Metawatt, who he's a local Denver guy, who
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I met Mitch in London. And it was funny because we're both from Colorado and we had to meet in London, of course. But yeah, that was fantastic. And this guy, check it out, Metawatt, if you have a second, Mitch Burnham. And he was actually, yeah, he was the one that was on your platform earlier when he was talking about the Bank of International Settlements
Yep.
and looking at the architecture of that Bank of International Settlements project called Project Mandala, and of course the Mandala upgrade.
Yeah.
I found that presentation fascinating. But this guy Mitch, I mean, he thinks that the entire world, the energy markets will eventually be priced in satoshis. He has a lot of reasonings why he thinks Satoshis themselves are energy. And he thinks that, it's only a matter of time before everything is priced in terms of their Satoshi unit, which he believes, is connected directly to the energy associated with it. So fascinating guy. Did you get into the energy stuff with him?
Oh yeah, the whole video it came out today just before this, and so it basically the entire show is all about the grid on the edge report that he released, and the basically the release of the Metawatt white paper and how it's going to operate. He's going to open source the whole thing, and with Satoshis, he goes into it in great detail. So it's
Yeah.
really fascinating. I mean, this
You know,
guy is a visionary, and I think that's the one thing, Brett, like that I want to get the message out there that perhaps that if we're just perhaps we're all just a little bit earlier. We see things maybe just a little bit I guess down the road, almost like futurists, you know,
yeah.
where
Yeah,
Mitch,
absolutely.
yourself, I mean, all these people that are really, embedded into it. And I was talking to Mitch about it. I said, Mitch, can you explain the difference between crypto? Because I got people who tell me, BTC friends, they say, well, BSV is a bottom of the barrel crypto. It's down at the very bottom. No one cares about it anymore. It's a dead crypto. And Mitch is like, well, if you want to look at it as a crypto, perhaps, but it's not just crypto. It's the Bitcoin blockchain.
Right.
And so that doesn't show up on the coin market cap. It doesn't say, oh, Bitcoin blockchain. It's not on there. So it's just hard. I
Yeah.
guess that's a hard message. How can we get that message out there to people that this is not just crypto? It's not just about crypto.
Yeah.
Much
Well,
deeper
maybe
than
if
that.
I could use a quick example, when I first was starting to learn about Bitcoin, I found a video that's still to this day, I really love it. It was called the Trust Machine, I think is what it's
Trust
called. And it was very simplistic, and maybe not everything the way that it was explained, aligns with 100% with all of my views about Bitcoin now that I have, spent, past 6 years working in this space. But they talked about the difference between the value of gold and the value of something like steel, or something like iron, right? So gold is valuable in a way because it's scarce and it's precious and it's glittery, and it has these properties like, that it doesn't corrode and things like this, right? But you don't really use it, right? You keep some. I have some in my little closet back there, and and I take it out sometimes and look at it, and all of this stuff. It's fun, but
Not a
it's
lot of
not
utility.
a lot of utility, yeah, unless you're using it for like supercomputers and things like that, right? But they and it contrasted against iron. It was like, here's why iron, it's much more valuable, right? But it just isn't, or it has much more utility, but it's just not worth anything, basically. And so we've always been in this mindset within Bitcoin and within, that the price is really the thing that we want to see, the driver of action. Everything needs to be coming back to how do we get that price to appreciate. And this is understandable because it's a hard asset, right? If it's the money of the future, if it's the money of everything, and there's only 21 million of them, then yeah, you want to get your share, right? Just like if it's a land grab, you want to go out there and get as much real estate as possible in the new future, right? But also, I think that the utility side of it, actually thinking of it not as gold but as steel, as something that you don't use iron just to hoard it. I don't have any iron sitting in my shelf back there, but there is iron underneath my home, and there is iron and steel that's the heart of the cities and infrastructure that we build. So actually, what I think the better analogy is, even though in this video that I loved when I was first learning about Bitcoin, it was talking poorly about the value of the characteristics of iron. I think much more BSV is much more closer to wanting to assume that role as the infrastructure, as the steel for this next new distributed data economy that is emerging. And just because the price is not as valuable as something like a digital gold or something like that, we know that the reason why that digital gold, the BTC value is going up is because of the greater fool theory. They just are, hey, if Michael Saylor's going to pitch in another couple billion, I might as well buy it before he does so that I can sell mine for, a $50 profit or something like
Yeah.
this, right? There's only so many times that you can pretend to climb one more invisible rung on the ladder, right? At the end of the day, it's the utility of an asset that drives its value.
Right. I learned recently, Brett, and this was on a little video that I saw on Twitter on X, and I've heard Truth and also Kurt talk about this, and that is that Bilderberg was the one that actually funded the Blockstream, and then they just did this connecting these dots between Blockstream and BTC Core, Bitcoin Core, and then the Tether. And I do know that Tether was indicted by the DOJ in New York, and they found that Tether had less than three. It was right 3.5% cash reserves. Now,
That's right.
since then, they had a chart that said where Tether was at then with the amount of money printing they'd done to where it went up to exponential amount so high I couldn't even count. It was so high. So I mean,
Yeah.
to think that back then they were reprimanded, they had to pay a small sanction because they weren't following protocol, and then now they've gone absolutely ballistic, skyrocketing in the printing of money of Tether. So I'm just thinking like, well, what is the real true value of BTC if you just have almost unlimited Tether? It's
Yeah,
it's just
it's
really
prop
confusing. I mean, it's like kind of deceptive in a way. I really think I hope that the new DOJ and Cash Patel get to the bottom of this and begin to investigate this because, uh, we should have accounting for all this money, printing with
I
Tether.
mean, and well, first of all, 0% chance that BTC would have ever hit $100,000 if it weren't for the flooding of $3 billion of Tether into the ecosystem. Tether is the main asset that's, if you look at some of the largest exchanges and what the major trading
Dude,
pairs are, it's almost entirely Tether
let me
is the BTC trading
let me
pair.
just comment on
I think it's
some
over 98%.
Dude,
Yeah, go
something
ahead.
really fascinating that happened at that time. And I want to point it out for the record. If you remember, it was the BTC sell wall. It was at 99, 98, 99, 99. And I was watching it. And then people on X, they were freaking out. They're like, there's a massive iceberg of sell orders at 100K. It was just this giant sell wall. Huge. Okay. And then somehow you're saying like what an extra 3 billion came into the market, or a massive amount of Tether just kind of piled in, and they passed the sell wall, and then it came
Right.
back down. Remember that?
And unfortunately, Gavin, those cell walls, those are not people that are just like sticking their thumb in the air and wondering which way the wind's blowing. Those are people that know the Tether's dumping in. So of course they know where to put the cell wall because they know that the cell wall is not going to survive the Tether influx. And the key is that how many times do you have to play the hot potato? No one wants to get caught with the Tether, right? So as soon as the Tether comes in, you want to try and convert that Tether into something else because like you said there's no actual reserves at the bottom of the Tether pile. So what we're looking at is a market misevaluation in terms of the average retail investor perspective of the price of Bitcoin and thinking, hey, great on me, I bought it at 60K last
Yeah.
summer and it's at 100K. I'm a genius, but they don't realize that really what that is a giant it's a giant counterfeit ring that is
Yeah.
supporting this. And what's
97%
sad,
market manipulation with Tether. That's what I'm finding out.
yeah,
97%. And not only that, but now I wish I could verify this, but from what I'm reading, and I don't, it's all hearsay, but Tether can't even get a bank account. That's what I'm
uh,
hearing. They're
they
not,
are a
no
bank
bank
account.
will
They're
give them a
Deltec.
what? They won't, but no
They
bank
are.
like US Bank will allow
No
them,
U.S. bank will do it.
will
No,
give them
no,
a bank
definitely
account.
not. And I have experience with that because I've worked with Deltec. I have I have Deltec
What's
represented.
Deltec?
Deltec is the bank in the Bahamas. That is where the Tether operation runs out of.
Oh, got it. A
Yeah, and
Bahamas
so
bank.
they're connected with lawmakers that are in the Bahamas, and those lawmakers just so happen to be married to Democratic lawmakers in the United States. So there's and then we have the whole issue with Sam Bankman-Fried, and his kickbacks were coming back to the US in terms of his Democratic donations, etc. And those were in the $30 million range, is what I understand. I think the woman's name is Marianne Williamson, if I remember correctly, and it's her husband who's a senior elected official out of the Bahamas, and he's directly connected with Tether. And so the point is that what we have is we have like we basically have a wink and a nudge, or a blind eye, so to speak, to just a massive manipulation market
A
and
massive counterfeit operation, basically. I
counterfeiting.
mean,
Yeah, no
beyond
reserves.
counterfeit beyond that we've ever seen. I mean, it's so
Yeah,
massive
and
that Cash Patel needs to start investigating this. I mean, tomorrow's his big showdown, and let's all pray that he gets in there, because this guy's no holds barred when it comes to this stuff. I think he's going to start investigating everything, dude. He's already said
fair
he is.
affairs. Yeah.
And if he investigates this, Tether's one of them. He needs to I'm just saying, investigate. That's all. Just
Well,
investigate, dude, and let the truth be told and be
and
known.
and what we're seeing is we're seeing the market slowly stepping away, especially with Trump coming in. We're seeing the market slowly start to step away and reprice. You'll see repricing here in the next 2 weeks, I think, as the market starts to move away from Tether. We're already seeing crypto.com, one of the big platforms. I think they still own the stadium that the Miami Heat play in. We're seeing them step away from Tether. No longer will they list Tether as of I think today.
Hmm.
Um, and
Wow.
uh, and so they're one of the major platforms. So crypto.com is saying Tether, we're done with Tether. And so, but here's the thing: is that when everything is propped up by Tether, and the other thing is that when they looked at Tether and they looked at what type of reserves they had, some cash equivalents, some treasuries and things like this, like probably a small amount,
Debt.
but
They had
they
debt.
also had paper. They had paper notes, right? So
Yeah,
those paper
debt.
are those are paper notes that belong to, guess who? Places like Coinbase.com and some of these other platforms. So basically what happens is these centralized exchanges, by virtue of the fact of trading these paper notes with Tether for the underlying asset security, now everything is systemically connected to Tether. And what you could see out of this, as more and more businesses move away, just like they moved away from Silvergate and from Silicon Valley Bank and stuff like that, who were like, compared to Tether, I mean, those are practically the Fed themselves, right? Like those, they were nowhere near as reckless or as ridiculous as a institution like Tether. And then you're seeing these that everything is now priced in it. BTC is going to be priced in it. What you're seeing is you're going to see a bloodbath. You're going to see the bears coming out. You're going to see the claws coming out, right? You're going to see the bulls tucking back and hiding you there, what's. And yeah, the market's going to be red because the house of cards of Tether is going to completely collapse. At the same time that Teranode, as a utility blockchain solution, is coming along, and you have platforms like the Department of Government Efficiency that have an open call to public blockchains. People like Cash Patel may be really interested to hear this and to know this, that this is a solution for all of these needs, for immutability of government contracts, for the
Yeah.
ability to make sure that public budgets
Right.
are monitored by a
And that's
public.
one of the that's a great point, Brett, about the transparency of government. Because one of the things I will say that I like is that there's an executive order that just recently came out. It froze all federal funding to a lot of these organizations, and said, let's wait, let's get cash in there, let's get everybody confirmed, and then we'll go ahead and make sure that this money. An example is the money going to California for the wildfires. Did you hear he went down there? He had a speech with the the people in California, and and as opposed to just saying, "Oh, here you go, Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, have a great day, enjoy it. Here's a blank check," like they'd done before in the past, and that didn't go so well. Now he says, "Wait a second, I'm going to assign what was called a special master." And that's the guy on his left at the meeting there. That special master is now going to be in charge of every single penny that goes out. Not Gavin Newsom. He hasn't been too too reliable on managing funds or things at all. So, or Karen Bass, you know. So, anyways, that's happening. And the point is that this could all be done easily on this public ledger, right, on the Bitcoin blockchain,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, really what the Bitcoin blockchain is just the world's most economic auditing system. And what better tool to audit than, the government itself? Because that's when the cat's away, the mice play. And the cat is definitely away when it comes to government spending and government funding, especially because they have their finger on the fiat button, right? And so yeah, I think that what we see is a bubble up effect of, they say that a master's tools will never dismantle a master's house, right? So the fiat system is never going to dismantle, the source of its own fiat lunacy, right? Because it's just the highs are too high and it's too cheap, right? That they can't get themselves off that free fiat sauce. But once the Bitcoin system, the network, the architecture, the efficiency, the ability to save hundreds of millions of dollars, because believe it or not, these government agencies, they are strapped for cash. They need to save money, right? Because at the end of the day, there is a piper that you got to pay, and that piper is the American public. But what we saw with the recent voice of the American public in November and everything since then is that we're seeing a group of people that are completely tired of it all. And we saw that Kamala Harris didn't flip a single county in the entire country. I mean, that to me is mind blowing. Not a single county,
Wow, not one county.
not one county,
I didn't
not
know
even
that.
one. And her campaign was she was running on Liz Cheney, and she was trying to sell us Republican light, right? So she's like, so the entire country, is ready for the Department of Government and everyone to come in and to clean this mess up, right? Because what we saw in the past 4 years, I mean, the COVID thing, don't even get me started on that. But even if
Yeah,
we just look at the amount of spending, the reckless spending that took place over the past 4 years, and a lot of it didn't even get to where it was going. I don't know if you saw this, but it took them 4 years to find that, COVID money that was supposed to go to local communities and businesses and things like this. This was
yeah,
being embezzled out of communities in the northern Midwest, et
oh yeah,
cetera. And we're just seeing it time and time
oh yeah.
again. What you need is an auditability system that can save the government hundreds of millions of dollars. And guess what? At the exact same time that the fiat fiasco is collapsing, we're seeing the rise of a system like Teranode that's coming in, able to actually power that system through market efficiencies by competitive networks, not by a monolithic institution like the government coming down and saying it is because we said so. This is about a distributed network of economic participants who have
Right.
their own nuts on the line,
And
so
I
to
think
speak.
the one of the messages that I'd like to send out there, and as we start to wind down here, is like with this, the whole thing with Satoshi when he wrote the white paper was about, look, we're not trying to end any systems. This is about making the existing systems better. It's not about anarchy or total chaos. This is about making the existing banks, the government, the fiat system much more transparent and efficient.
That's right.
And saving them money, making them all. It's not about taking them down. Hell, it's about making them way better, massively improving all the way they operate.
Yeah.
So
And just to touch on that as a final point, because you hear as we're for example, BSV blockchain was at Davos recently. They were at the
yeah,
World Economic
yeah.
Forum.
What can you tell
And
people about that? Did you recap on
yeah,
that? What
yeah,
happened?
so those were it was an opportunity to go out there and to share this message like I was just describing about how to save hundreds of millions of dollars by putting your public infrastructure, by putting your private infrastructure on top of this economically efficient auditing system, and the benefits, the ripple benefits that has, and changing the dynamics of the incentives. But I can also understand where people were skeptical and going like, hey, that it feels very that's not an institution that I have a really great feeling about. And why is BSV going out there? And
Who
you
was
see that.
the speaker there? I at the event. I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Well, so
BSV.
Richard Baker from Tokenization went out
Mhm.
there. By the way, have you had Richard on?
No, I have not.
Him on the show. He
Okay.
is trip. I love this guy. One of the smartest people, 40 years worth of experience. And he's selling a platform that the world desperately needs. It is the tokenization of everything, from precious metals to derivatives. It's basically just the same infrastructure where they converted stock markets from paper
Yeah,
certificates to digital certificates. It's that times, 10 orders of magnitude, because it is the ability to offset each other, right? Because they're an instantaneous real-time settlement, as opposed to like T+2 or something like that, where you're waiting for 9 to 5s, the banks to open, etc., right? Because you need to make sure that reserves are settled, etc. With BSV, it's not 9 to 5, it's 24/7. You have instantaneous settlement. You can take instantaneous derivative positions on things that you're doing all over the globe, shipping containers that you're moving across the Pacific Ocean, and you're taking a 1 or 2 bip discount on, because you're seeing that there's a potential for some ice storms or something like that, right? This is moving markets moving at the speed of light, and that's what we need in today's day and age. Not this old antiquated system, the horse and buggy carriage system of basically waiting until JP Morgan wakes up and figures out where's the money to be made that day. The
yeah.
money's made all over, and we need to empower more economic participants, just like we need to empower more media participants. But I could go on and on about that. I think that it's a system that it understandably worries some people, especially when you move into places like the Davos and start talking with the World Economic Forum. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a system that is just bringing accountability and integrity to a world that desperately needs it, that is basically off its rocker.
Definitely. So nice, Brett. All right. Well, let's end it there. Let's do it again sometime. Greatly appreciate it. Where can people find you?
On Manifestable on Twitter, x.com. Yeah, reach out to me. If it is able to be manifested, then it is manifestable. That's me.
Nice. All right, everybody, hit the ones, leave a comment. Brett, hopefully you'll read the comments in the video as well. If you have any questions or comments for Brett, you can do it there. And be sure to subscribe. I'll see you at the top. And thank you, Brett. Later.